welcome all. So I'll try to make it quick, 20 minutes. So the topic is how do we measure ROI for AI applications? So in fact, I met a guy a few months back. So I was asking, hey, I'm Naveen, Mr. X. What do you do? I work in AI. Interesting. What do you do in AI? Oh, I do staffing for AI. Okay, so that's such a hype cycle in AI today. Every company is .ai. There's a lot of AI applications. Everyone claims to do AI, but my topic is not more towards an ROI of those sort of organizations, but the real work, what's happening. I was amazed to kind of see the kind of applications. I think most of you are doing it. What I see in the exhibitions down there. So I'm going to take more a practitioner view in terms of how AI applications are built and how an ROI could be measured. It's more a framework. It's not a mathematical formula, but how one has to go towards, looking at an ROI from AI applications. So if I just jump in. So this is more often the two situations we face. One, wherein we go to a business user, the CFO. One, primarily, hey, I want to build a defect detection application. I need 200K for it. Yeah, please take it. That's not an answer we're going to get it. But instead, yeah, I want to see an opportunity of 3 million. I want you to put 200K. Why not? The conversation is much easier. CFO is going to like it. And these are the situations where all of us want to be in and kind of focus our energy towards. Not easy because it's in a hype cycle today. It's not that all applications could be measured. But if you follow a methodology, maybe we'll get there. And eventually things might be much easier. Just a lay of land for you, right, in terms of how the investments are happening across industries and what is the percentage of revenue they're investing and how people are able to realize an ROI across each industries, because industries are at a varied level of maturity. If you look at primarily only, and this is one of the survey done by McKinsey, that's what they published, 22% of organizations quantify value from AI. Rest all is subjective because it's going to improve my NPS, it will improve my customer satisfaction, it's going to reduce my defects. So this is more subjective in nature, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to get an X value out of it. My NPS is going to improve by 2%, which is going to eventually add me $10 million in revenue, right? So those are the things which is more quantified. So the X-axis is the total investment, and the Y-axis is investment as a percentage of revenue. When you look at it, and I'm sure as the year passes by, this number is going to increase. That's how we see the industry exploding in terms of the AI spend. Now, as you look at it, automotive is spending huge amount of money, and the size of the bubble talks about an ROI percentage coming across in the industry. So if you look at each of these landscape, where it is, an average around each one, you get an ROI of around 1.8%. From the investments what going into the into the AI applications. That's what we see in the landscape today from an industry standpoint. Just to introduce myself, Naveen, one of the co-founders for Gramner. At Gramner, we build custom data and AI solutions. Primarily, we are a consulting and solution building organization. But the way we build is we developed a low-code application development framework, which we bring as an accelerator to our customers and develop solutions faster. And our vision is insights as data stories. We believe that there's no point in doing mathematical models, statistical analysis, presenting in a certain way where you can't augment your decision-making process, convert into stories that could be explainable AI, narratives, visuals, comics, videos, doesn't matter. It's a combination of things, how you can combine insights and story and build it as a custom solution. That's what we focus, work across more than 120 odd clients across varied industries. But just to give you a perspective of where we play a lot and where we are seeing the application of AI happening. In the technology areas, we focus heavy on computer vision, NLPs, digital twins, and geospatial analytics. And the few of the chosen verticals where we have done significant amount of applications so far, and few of those use cases is more on logistics, manufacturing, warehousing, supply chain, procurement, and in the pharma life sciences, heavy on the drug discovery, clinical trial, regulatory. That's a space where we've applied most of these work. Outside of this, there are a few other common areas like commercial, HR, some of the areas where we applied. So what I'm going to focus now largely is, having done this over last decade or so, having built a number of applications, the common question getting asked to us is, hey, we are spending millions of dollars with you. Show us ROI. That has been the constant question. We struggled for a few years and now can at least have a framework which we apply to any of the engagement. So that is what I'm going to share with you, my knowledge, what we applied from the industry. And if this, this is beneficial to you, please take it, reach out to me for anything further. So the three challenges, what we typically see in any AI applications or enterprise world. Challenge number one, the data doesn't lead to outcomes always. So you have data, you have insights, recommendations, actions, outcomes. That's a logical way to flow, but it doesn't happen. There's always a broken link. And as this data and analytics AI is evolving, I think one got to do, it's more a volume. You got to do things much faster at greater velocity for you to see the success. You can't do a project for 6 months and say that, hey, this will be successful. Instead, if you can do 10 projects in 6 months, 1 or 2 will be successful. That's the nature of how data science is evolving. So that's the first challenge, that you can't connect data to the outcomes. Second, it's not always quantified, okay, for lack of experience or, the nature of the problem, what we're trying to solve, or the effort not being spent. That's the second challenge most of the enterprises face today. Third, it's not always attributed to it. So Disney, pre-pandemic, they said, hey, our goal is to have 90 million subscribers by 2024. Bingo, they hit it in 14 months because of the COVID and a lot more things what happened, right? So there are a lot of things which are outside of our control where you can't attribute that, hey, I did this AI application or solution, I'm able to get a result out of it, right? So you got to eliminate things, take certain things into consideration when you really build it. So these are the three key challenges, if I were to kind of summarize it out. So once, you have these challenges and you got to do it, it's an evolving field and varied level of maturity. So we kind of narrowed down to a framework, what we call it as a SMART framework, and apply it internally for any work, what we do, any consulting engagement. When we go to a client or when you do a data strategy, we do quite a bit of 3-year roadmap, building the data strategy for enterprises. At the start, obviously you want to kind of put a dollar to it, provided an ROI. So we apply a framework to it and say, hey, you do this XYZ problem, this is what looks like your ROI is going to be. What does that look like? So one, before you start, it's strategic relevance is the first metric. Second, can I measure the success? How will you measure it? Can I attribute that metric to an outcome? That yes, there's an outcome linked to it. Can I do a cost and profit analysis? Can I do a tally the cost and then the results came out of it? More important, can I benchmark against industry? So these are the 5 key elements, and I'm going to go into each one of them with a practical case study, what we have done, and then talk through it. So if I get into it, so we were working with one of the cold storage company, the second largest cold storage in United States. So the key problem, they said, hey, we want to reduce the turnaround time of trucks. Because as the trucks take a lot of time moving around, waiting at our warehouses, we got huge detention charges. And then we have a bad, NPS from our customers because they got to wait longer at our warehouse. So they said, how can you guys help us out? Okay. We picked up, worked along with them for a year. We kind of did this project, deployed across 39 warehouses, and the impact is huge. I'm just giving you a quarterly savings per warehouse kind of a scenario. And while this is a real case study, some of the numbers are fictional because due to client confidentiality, I can't give you the exact numbers what has happened, but you would be able to relate more closer to it. So that's an application being built. Now, if I were to apply the same framework to this, and this is something where we applied these steps and looked at it, what is the strategic relevance of this application? Why do I need to have an appointment scheduler to start off? Key questions, what pain points? And I'm listing you a few elements. It's more a framework. it changes by the nature of the problem what you're trying to do. Here the problem is clearly articulated. High idle time for trucks. Okay, and I'm paying huge detention charges. How do I avoid it? That's a clear problem, articulated problem. How will this use case benefit the organization? So at the start of it, we put a number to it. If I reduce by X percentage, Y is what the benefit you're going to get it, right? Who will be the stakeholder? Who is going to get benefited? The one is the warehouse manager and the customers, and obviously the supervisor is the user who's going to use this application or solution, right? So one, my request is before you start any projects, please try to articulate this. Even you might be way off, that's perfectly fine, but you have going within a point of view. During the course of the project, some things might change, you might pivot or you might stall it, but you know that what are you trying to hit for. That's the first element of the SMART. Second, when you look at the metrics or the measures of success, broadly anything can be framed into these 5 parameters, largely. One is anything you are trying to do for a customer, for a stakeholder, for the entire org. It's all revenue related or innovation because you want to stay ahead of the market. So we were trying to kind of combine, for this example, few metrics around this. So these are the measures I want to look at it from the gamut of things. Okay, I picked up 5 metrics for it, 5 measures. Second, how do I attribute those metrics to data? The biggest mistake we do is we tend to kind of come back to the ROI post completion of the project. It's not going to happen. You want to collect the data from day one. Okay, have a measure in place, have a methodology in place so that the data is collected. So in this case, we are trying to kind of look at how, what category, what metrics, and what data should I collect it. From a finance standpoint, the cost optimization. If we were to look at it, we were collecting the per appointment, how much am I saving, essentially. So in this case, it's all notional numbers. So I had saving of around very quantified, objective way of $2 to $3 per appointment. And I have a NPS, what am I improving with my customers? A score of X. Okay. Likewise, what is an operational efficiency? I have it. My turn time has reduced by 18%. Great. And I have an effort saving of X per Y warehouse. Right? So now I can multiply it across. What would that be? So this is where I'm attributing my measures to an outcome. A connection has happened. Strategic relevance, you are measured, and there's an outcome tag to it. Okay, now you are trying to establish always a linkage of outcome with AI. What would have happened if I had not done this? What would happen if I had done this? Typically, you do this using a typical A/B testing or random control testing. There are various ways where you want to apply to it. So we kind of broken down into a control group and experimental group. So essentially, this is one where the AI model is running and said, hey, once if I run in this, what would have happened? So my detention cost would be $15, whereas somewhere without the AI application, my detention cost is 19. Yes, it's proven. I mean, you got to repeat this multiple times in various scenarios. When you do this, that is where you're linking an outcome with an AI application and proving a point that this is what eventually a savings, what's going to happen to me. So this is where once you do it, then tally it out, just like how a finance person would do it. You reckon the break even. Now look at various elements of what goes into it, right? It's the people cost, which is not only the training. There's a huge change management in AI. That's what we see whenever these applications are deployed. First thing is it doesn't work. Second thing is it works, but I don't believe it. Third, how do I use it? So there's a good amount of change management what goes into do that has to be factored into the cost. Technology, right from build, operations, model tweaking. There's a lifetime cost towards having a model or AI application being deployed. Process and opportunity cost, likewise, what is a gain you are having it. So if you know that how you're able to map it, then you have a clear way of establishing what is an ROI you would have for each of them, right? Last but not the least is, am I doing good with the industry, or where do I stand? It's not that I am able to see a ROI of 0.5%. If my industry is doing it 2%, why am I doing it 0.5? So there's an opportunity for us to improve further. Understanding the benchmark from an industry standpoint. This is again one of the McKinsey survey, which says the average payback of any data or AI investment is approximately 17 months. And again, it varies by the maturity of the industry. Automotive being much ahead in the game, they get to see this, pretty much in 1.26 years, as opposed to healthcare, it's 1.61. So that's typically how, and also it varies by the organization maturity. Someone who is a leader, maturity is very different than a beginner, someone who's getting into it. So benchmark against this, anything what you're trying to do. So what did I do? I picked one example, applied a framework, and then kind of gone through it. The same way, I just want to give you 2-3 other examples to just tell you the varied kind of problems where we applied and where we also failed, where we could not really figure out a way of ROI to it. So we were trying to work with one of the regulatory in the pharma industry to scan almost like 6 to 10 million documents and redact it out, take out the privacy information, a machine learning way of how can I help pharma companies to file from a regulation perspective. So knock off all the PIP information. It's a machine learning way with a human in the loop kind of a scenario. And we're able to see a good amount of at least a 97% faster turnaround that has happened from a timing standpoint. For clinical trial operations, that is very important. But more important, can I peg down on the savings? Some of the savings, what we are kind of seeing happening with them. Likewise, we are working with, on the sustainability standpoint, with the Calgary, one of the Canadian municipality, to how to reduce urban heat islands. So Canadian cities, the temperature is increasing almost like 2 degrees every decade. That's huge, the global warming, what's happening. So we are trying to take the entire satellite imagery and put a solution to it, is how can I make sure that there are interventions happening at each places, the city planning can do. If this particular 1 by 1 square block is emanating good amount of heat, can I do some interventions? So this is a solution given to them. And here we try to apply the same framework, but I could not come up with a quantified value. What would that be? Eventually, it would have been better for us to say that temperature would reduce by X, but the quanta of data being available to us and the information being shared, we could not. The only thing it happened is the town planning intervention, their time reduced by 32%. So that's one of the solutions. So you would definitely have a scenario of that, but constantly, how we can improve it. Likewise, this is for one of the HVAC services. With the interest of time, I'm going to skip this out. But more important is, I think for you, as I covered, this is a framework from a practitioner standpoint. As in, like, how do you practice it? How do you kind of pick the right projects? Don't pick what is something which is more urgent for you. But if you typically put a UI metrics, what is important, because this is more strategic for me, this gives me a great advantage. This is one framework where we are seeing helpful to you. But more important for you is more a mindset shift as opposed to picking a template. I think that is what needs to happen as org maturity improves, as your data culture improves. I think, for you to kind of get into this framework from start would be useful. That's what I would kind of submit. And we do quite a bit of data strategy exercise. If you're interested to look at a data maturity assessment of your organization, so you could go to data maturity, you can put your survey there. We'll be able to share you free report and also an ROI template for you. If you're interested, please do that. With this, thank you. I have 2 minutes more. For any questions, I can take it up.